How are you? Okay. That's amazing. You see there is a parking place here. Probably Blumenthal would like me to go back. Anyway.
So when was the last time you were back?
It's almost 20 years now. Maybe
you have not been back so you really have boycotted, sanctioned, and
absolutely, and
divested.
Well before Omar Baghouti decided to study in Tel Aviv University. Yes, I realized at a certain stage the crime that is committed, still committed in Palestine, and I decided that I will never step a foot in this place. I don't perform there. At a certain stage I decided not to publish my work there, which I'm not so sure, the Wandering Who, I had two opportunities, and I'm not so sure that it's right, because maybe I should communicate with these people, but I definitely boycott them of enjoying my art. From enjoying.
One of the things that I was telling everybody in the car, I said, there was so much in the Wandering Who that, it was such a hard book to read, and sometimes I'd pick it up and I'd put it down and I'd say, oh my God, Gilad is nuts. But at the very beginning of the book, he made me cry because it was so poignant.
What made you feel?
When you talked about serving in Lebanon,
yeah,
I want to know what kind of an impact that made on you. The story I remember, and it's been a while since I picked up the book, was the story where you saw all the Palestinians locked up in cages.
Yeah, this was actually 3 years. 2 years actually. After the beginning of the war. No, sorry. Yeah, in the beginning of the war, I was kind of in Lebanon, on the road, on my left, on my right, massive refugee camps. And this was the first time I realized that all those people actually came from a land that I believe to be mine. A week before I finished my compulsory duty in the IDF, we were playing. We gave a concert in Amsa, which is a concentration camp. It is like one time.
Where?
In Lebanon, Lebanese soil. And when I saw there how the Palestinians were treated, surrounded by barbed wires, we saw between dozen to 20 concrete cubes. It was very hot, it was in the summer, with metal doors, and I was sure that they were for dogs, and I pointed out to the commander that they should never even consider putting dogs there, because they would die. So don't worry, it's not for dogs, it's for Palestinians. And interestingly enough, I've never heard a single Palestinian talking about it. I saw Palestinians, when I looked closely, I saw hands hanging out. But I never heard kind of a Palestinian describing what happened there. And when I was in Lebanon in January, 7 months ago, I was a guest of Al Mayadeen.
Right.
They took me to... I hear jazz. They took me to El Hayam, and in El Hayam, I saw. They took me to a room, and I saw the exact same thing. but it was made of a metal. I can send you. I have the picture here. I can send it to you if you want. So yeah, I didn't make it up.
No, I didn't.
No. I'm sorry. I knew that. Nobody has ever said that I was making it up. But it was very interesting for me that, you know, we don't hear any actually Palestinians describing this experience, which must be kind of horrendous. You know? But however, when I saw that, it was very clear to me that I don't want anything to do with this state, with this regime, with this idea. But I was still an Israeli, and I've never been political. As you know, I never been part of your group or part of any group. I was happy to support your thing because I see it as a humanitarian project, but I never operated politically. So it took me quite a few years to understand what I can do with all those realizations that are still brewing.
Here's the problem that I had, and I still have it sometimes, is everybody picks on you. Everybody picks on you. Oh, now you've got Max Blumenthal picking on you. But there are parts of your book that are so poignant and so touching and so sad that nobody, and you never talk about it, and nobody else ever talks about it, but you came to the point where you are because of those experiences you had.
To start with, as you probably know, and it is an established fact, that none of those who picked on me read my work.
Read your book.
Anything, you know. As you know, Ali Abunimah admitted to Professor Norton Mislinsky that he has never read a word by me. Blumenthal is exposed now because he misrepresented my work, which means that he didn't read anything by me. So I'm very happy with those people picking on me. The first thing that I do, rather than hiding, I said, oh, Ali Abunimah picked on me, and what did he say about me? X, Y, Z. Obviously he was lying. Obviously he was working for someone. And I did the same with Max Blumenthal a few days ago, and the impact on him is devastating because he exposed himself as a tribal operator, which is something that I'm very sorry for him, because I think again that it did some good work.
Yeah, the rest of his article and the rest of his interview is excellent. If you take out the first 10 minutes of it, where he goes on and on about you, all the rest of it's wonderful and nobody's paying any attention. It's the same thing.
But there is a reason. There is a reason. There is obvious reason why they pick on me, and they're right. I do expose the deceitful nature of Jewish tribal politics, and it is very devastating. It was very devastating for me a few years ago that I realized initially. I thought Jews should stand up and protest as Jews. This is a very natural political reaction. They say, I'm a Jew and I have nothing to do with this crime. But I then realized that there is a bit of a problem with it. If I say, I'm a Jew, and what happens in Israel is a crime, I actually say, I'm okay, but all the other Jews are bastards. Now, I don't want to say it. Why? Because at the time, I was working with an Israeli drummer who was living with me in Britain. He was born and raised in Kiryat Arba, if it means something.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. All right. His father was a major settler But he left Israel, and he wanted to be a drummer. He's one of the best drummers in the world. His name is Asaf Sirkis. And I decided that everything I say about Jews, I would put into play the Asaf case. And I realized that I don't have the right to expect him to be politically. He left Israel. He doesn't want to be part of it. And I decided that it's not the fact that people are Jews, it's the fact that they are identified as Jews. And when they identify as Jews, I want to understand what do they mean. When I see a rabbi who identifies as a Jew, I know what he means. He believes in the Torah, and his moral guidance has something to do with the Talmud, and we can criticize it. It's not a problem for me, but he would probably have some good answers. He better have some good answers if he's a rabbi. But when I see Max Blumenthal or Philip Weiss, who identify as Jews, I really want to know why do they identify as Jews, and what does it mean? Because they're not religious. So they would say that it's something to do with their culture. I actually, as educated as anyone else in Jewish culture, and I know that we don't have a humanist Jewish secular textbooks. We have quite a few Jews who were humanists, but we don't have Jewish secular textbooks. In fact, Zionism was the only attempt to produce an ethical Jewish secular philosophy. It's an absurd, but it's true. So I come to realize, after talking to them, that it has something to do with culture, with chicken soup, basically. And chicken soup is not a political argument.
But it's great.
And it's great. It's great. It's great. It's definitely a very proved to be a very serious Jewish medicine.
It is.
You know, very good for flu or whatever. But it's not going to liberate the Palestinian people. Not even the Canadians, if you made them with stones. I don't know. It's not going to work. So, what's the difference between myself and Israel Shahak, whom I admire, is that Israel Shahak identified a serious problem with the Talmud, with Judaic teaching. And he was correct. You know, he brought all the evidence. But I realized that it is slightly problematic because most Jews are not familiar with the Judaic text. The progressive Jews in America, they are more familiar with Trotsky than the book of Deuteronomy. Okay? So it's not, so there is a problem there, and I want to know what is their ideology. And it is not very surprising because it didn't take me too long to find out that what they are doing is actually serving their tribal interest. They say, you see, look at us, we are good Jews. I say, listen, I'm very happy and I'm sure that you are good, but your goodness doesn't vindicate Israel. It doesn't vindicate the Jewish people of the crime that is committed by AIPAC. And I decided that it's my duty, and it is my duty because I'm the only one who has the guts to do it, to ask, what is Jewishness? Who are the Jews? What is Judaism? What are the relationship between Judaism, Jewishness, Jews, and Zionism? And my findings are pretty devastating. They're also pretty devastating for me. And my new findings are even more devastating.
So that's why you decided to be a sax player.
I don't know. You know,
it's easy to play. After listening to you, I think, oh my God, I think no wonder you play the sax, because you have to have some relief.
I must admit to you that I really enjoy writing. And when I find out, like we just spoke about this eugenic project within Jewish society, European, Ashkenazi, Yiddish nation, what's defined as Yiddish nation, this Eugenics project. That when I realized the impact, I realized how my family is part of this class division, my parents. I realized how political circumstances in the region are implicated by this class division, and I write about it. I have a wonderful time. I really enjoy myself being an author and a saxophonist, and sometimes I write and cry because it is very sad. I wrote today about Syria. It is incredible. It is incredible. It is incredible, you know. It is so clear to me, and here I'm coming on camera and I'm saying it. It is so clear to me. I was a soldier. I was a paramedic for a while. It is so clear to me that an army wouldn't drop gas on its own capital. You know, you have to be an idiot. While they're knowing that there are international inspectors. So it's clear to me, it is very possible that there was an accident, that the unit deployed the wrong ammunition or whatever, but this would be an accident, and this is a terrible accident. But there wouldn't be an odor. The thing with gas, for instance, you know, there's wind, you don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
So if there is a battle in this city, I cannot see the mayor of this city decide to deal with it dropping gas. So it's clear that it's a foreign element. And at the same time, I see Israeli pushing for this intervention. And I see the Sixth Navy proceeding towards Syria, and they're already talking about what they're going to do with the Tomahawks. And I'm devastated. I'm thinking about these Syrian people, you know. It is devastating, and it's actually more devastating than what we see in Palestine. And we see the Jewish lobby in America pushing for it.
Well, it isn't easy being an American at this time either.
I can imagine.
You know, I mean, really, half the time I say, I'm really sorry. I've gone, I've left. I mean, it's very hard. I don't know whether you're Israeli or American.
This is a very good point. This is a very good point. And this is something that Zand actually pointed out in his new book. I think that it's not available yet in Shlomo Zand.
Oh.
He pointed out in his new book, he says, I'm going all over the world and I meet these wonderful, good Jews. And they talk about Israel as Jews. And they're anti-Israelis, which is understandable. And they celebrate the right as Jews doing so. So surely they actually affirm that this is the Jewish state. And if Philippi or Blumenthal have the right to criticize Israel as Jews, surely the right-wing American Jewish community has also the right to support Israel.
Well, they do.
Exactly. So everything is fine. Everything is fine, and we are joined. And this is exactly what I'm saying. If you want to become a humanist, you have to transcend yourself beyond the tribal argument. You have to criticize Israel as a human being. And by the way, this is here on camera. This is the awful thing what I'm going to say. I occasionally see beautiful Jews, some of them are friends of mine, and they say, in the name of our Jewish culture, and I know that there is nothing in our Jewish culture, and I want to correct them and to say, don't say in the name of your Jewish culture, you should say, in spite of my Jewish culture, I'm against Israel. In spite of my Jewish culture, I'm for humanism. In spite of my Jewish culture, I'm for equality. In spite of my Jewish culture, I'm for human rights.
There's some that have gotten that far. There's some that have gotten that far.
Definitely. They're called self-haters.
Right.
And they're chased.
You and
they're chased.
Rich and
Spinoza, Jesus.
Jesus, right. Yeah.
Finkelstein is very interesting.
Yeah.
Finkelstein is very interesting because Finkelstein doesn't tend to speak in the name of his Jewishness. He doesn't hide the fact that he is a Jew. I have a lot of respect to Finkelstein because, to start with, it's not a mutual thing. I don't know how much he likes me, but he speaks as an academic. He presents an argument. I don't agree with him many times, but I respect people who are willing to say what they think, to present an argument. People who don't operate tribally. By the way, I don't have problem with people operating tribally. I'm not against tribalism. I'm against tribalism that is celebrated on the expense of other people. For instance, you were a victim of a tribal assault. And this is when I stood up for you, and you saw me as a victim of a tribal assault, and you, amongst many other people, stood up for me. And this is something. And what is happening now with Blumenthal? I didn't see a single person who support him, but then it's a surge. You know, you go on information clearinghouse. I just somebody wrote to me, so I looked at it. You know, the slaughtering, and this is new. This is new.
And actually,
this is new.
This is since I got attacked. I mean, it was happening to you, and nobody said very much. And then it kept happening to you. And when people like Philip Weiss came after me for something that was so, of course it was stupid, but it was easy to make a stupid mistake on social media. I think people began to realize, wait a minute, just a minute. Are we the arbiters of what you can read and what you can watch and what you can say? Or are we the new McCarthys?
Do you want me to share? To start with, you know, my book came out. I've been part of a subject to this assault for years.
Yes.
And it's never been a problem for me because I'm not politically driven. I'm not running a movement. I'm not waiting to be elected. All I want to do is to celebrate my symptoms. I want to say what I think and to play the music that I love to play. It's very simple. The fact that I annoy a lot of people is part, you know, believe me that my music can be more annoying. It's just, yeah? Okay, so this never been a problem. But then something very interesting happened. My book came with a very interesting publisher. It's like the only growing publisher in Britain. It was endorsed by the most interesting list of the most important intellectuals that ever been associated with our movement.
Yep, that's true.
They went under horrendous harassment campaign, and they didn't vote the president, which is unusual. Because the way it works in this movement, the Jews are telling us he's an anti-Semite, and then, oh, sorry, I didn't know about it. And oi, 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 oi. No, and it didn't know, it didn't happen. Richard Falk didn't surrender, Mersheimer, no one. Not only they didn't, they stood up for me. They said, and some of them, it's Gilad, you know, I tell you, I went under so much pressure, I decided to reread your book. It's a wonderful text. Thank you for asking me to endorse it. And I'm now touring in universities all over the world. I meet professors who are just interested in metaphysics, and they tell me, listen, this may be the most important text philosophical text, nothing to do with Jews. Because I deal with Heidegger, I deal with a lot of things that nobody there dealing with Heidegger because he was a Nazi, and the fact that he was a Nazi has zero significance for me. He was the most important philosopher of this millennium, of the previous millennium. And so I survived it. And then they did it to you, and you survived it. And they did it to Ken, and he survived it. And they did it to Galloway. They really, I can agree or not agree. Some people like Galloway. I find him a fascinating guy, but he's definitely the most brilliant speaker. And they decided to demolish him. Barghouti, who is on the verge of almost illiterate, and then they did it to Finkelstein, who is the other best speaker. And then I realized that they have a serious issue with intelligent people, which is typical to progressive tribal operator.
But that's what you said at the very beginning. You said you kind of separate into whatever tribe it is. The Irish did the same thing. Listen, what the Irish did is they took their best and their brightest and they turned them into priests and nuns. And they left the lumpen proletariat Irish to procreate. And people in the Irish community is exactly what happened. And people in the Irish community know that. They said you took your best and your brightest and your most intelligent, you turned them into a priest and you turned them into a nun.
And you fucked them up.
And they couldn't do that either.
By the way, what you did now is wonderful. Because without realizing it, you spoke about biology. About the impact of biology in determining the strength of a nation and the intellectual strength. And you're right. Yeah. You are right. And similar projects took place within the Jewish culture. As I mentioned before, I didn't do it in front of the camera, so I do it now. For hundreds of years, the Yiddish nation, the Jewish East European society, or European in general, have developed a very interesting eugenic project. Very interesting eugenic project where the rich man in the ghetto, in the shtetl, would marry his daughter to the sage, to the most clever kid in the yeshiva, in the Jewish university, the one that is destined to be either the Talmudic expert or the rabbi. And what they did, basically, they created a class, very small class, of extremely gifted Jews, and a very big class of Jews who were lacking any intellectual or rabbinical or scholarship tendencies. Now, and we didn't speak about it before, 19th century assimilation, emancipation. You have in the middle of Europe, you have a very strong tribal sect that is immaculately clever. And once they're free, they're out of the ghetto, they go to university, to law schools, to medical schools, they become the most important people in Europe because they were really clever. They were really clever. And what is the next thing that they want to do? The next thing that they want to do is to run as far as they can from the tribe.
Intermarry.
Yeah, to intermarry. And this is where Zionism,
that is what they did.
And this is where Zionism comes into play. That shit, we are losing our brains. And we bring them back. It is a very interesting project. Nobody there's talking about it.
Yeah, it's sort of like a bad eugenics
Yeah,
experiment.
but there was a eugenic, very interesting eugenic project, as you say, in the Catholic society. They take the most clever people and they bring them to a dead end. They tell, listen,
and that's true.
You know, in the Jewish culture, they actually made it into a kind of an institutional system that brings sophistication to the max. And we have to admit it and to understand why we have two societies, why Israel is so divided between what they call the Sephardi Jews and the Ashkenazi Jews, which are not really Ashkenazi Jews, East European, all this kind of segregational way of thinking. And I'm the one who speaks about it. And as you know, until now, not a single person presented not even a half-baked argument against me. Because it's not easy. Because when they are working on campaigns and thinking how to destroy people, I'm sitting and reading something that is probably something that has something to do with my rabbinical background. You know, this is my mom. That's what my mom is doing. She is an academic. She is a major brain, and she's sitting and reading all day and writing, reading and writing and reading and writing. She doesn't publish a lot. I publish a lot. I fought it out.
Yeah, I think that like any pioneer of any kind, you're the one that's going to take the knocks. You're the one that's going to, you know, try to find the path. It isn't, and that's not necessarily easy, and people don't necessarily like what you have to say. There are times I don't like what you have to say. I think, oh my God, Gilad.
And I never present myself as a victim. I do realize that a lot of people there want to see me gone, and I accept it. They're right. I endanger their tribal project. But I'm supporting the Palestinians. How many Palestinians died in the last months just for being Palestinians? So if I pay a price for being who I am, I have to accept it. This is my role in my life. I'm not very good in being on boats. You know, you in
we
the
wouldn't
first
have asked you anyhow.
You asked me in the first
I did.
boat.
Actually, I did it. We did ask him on the first boat.
And I said yes, funny enough.
No, and somebody said to me, you can't have him on the boat.
Yeah, I
He's an
remember.
anti-Semite. I said, really? How is that possible?
But you know, it was a good lesson for me. You know, people tell me, Gilad, we want you to do something for Palestine. I say, you don't really need it. You know, go. There are people that do it. I do what I do.